So I'm just going to talk a bit about, I guess, careers in CTI. Just reiterate Debbie's appeal and encourage people. Sorry, I'm just juggling windows here. To get those questions in. I've tried to kind of anticipate as much as feasible likely questions and kind of geared it towards the audience that we think we've got on tonight. But please do try and make the most of the session and fire away using the question functionality if there is anything we can address. Really quickly, I'm going to touch on who we are at Orpheus, who I am, kind of why I'm speaking here tonight. Quickly touch on CTI and hopefully kind of unpack a couple of common misconceptions. I'm going to talk about some of the different routes that are available to that are available into CTI. Try and explain or make an argument for why I see CTI as a kind of particularly attractive career path, and certainly focusing in on my own experience as to why I found it particularly fulfilling and rewarding, and also just to introduce a bit of kind of competitive edge between me and the other presenters, which I can't resist. Touch quickly on what do we want. Again, I should caveat all this by saying my experience is and kind of the way I'm presenting tonight is purely through my own personal experience. I can speak for what I look for in kind of potential CTI candidates and what we look for in Orpheus more broadly. But I should kind of caveat that before starting by saying it is only my perspective and experience. And then just touch on a couple of resources if people make those accessible when we kind of send out the recording or stick this on YouTube. But just moving on, so quickly in terms of who we are as a company, we are a relatively small still consultancy. So founded around 4 years ago. We are explicitly focused on providing cyber threat intelligence for intelligence-led security testing schemes. So with some of those accreditations via CREST and other kind of government frameworks and bodies, we are basically trusted to provide threat intelligence to kind of elements of critical national infrastructure in the UK. So as a result, we work with some really kind of prestigious, big, interesting clients that I'm shamelessly name dropping on the right-hand side there. We get to do some pretty interesting work as a result, and we also offer a kind of number of other subscription and consulting services, which I'm going to hopefully try and unpack in a bit of detail over the next few slides. Really quickly, in terms of me, because this is the less interesting part, so I'm the head of intelligence at Orpheus.
Ollie,
your slides have disappeared.
Yeah, your slides have gone.
Classic. Let me try to do this again. Thanks for interjecting in any case. And obviously my video's cut off once you start sharing on Zoom. That was hubris saying the transition was too smooth earlier, Debbie, so I've seen paid for that. Can people see those again now?
Yep, definitely can.
Right. No, we go again. So I'm the head of intelligence at Orpheus. So I'm essentially responsible for managing the output of our consulting and subscription services. So basically, any time a client comes to us with a requirement, I'm kind of responsible from from working with our team of kind of in-house analysts and experts, translating that into a deliverable, a product or a service, and kind of getting that out the door, and managing that same process for our kind of ongoing subscription services as well. We are a kind of startup, as I mentioned, so you also get the privilege of wearing many other kind of weird and wonderful hats within the company too, just to kind of keep me occupied. In terms of my role with CREST and kind of why I'm speaking here tonight, I sit on the CTIPs executive committee. So CTIPs, as you can hopefully see in the logo in the top right, is the CREST subcommittee dedicated to threat intelligence, so dedicated to representing this sector and growing it and kind of ensuring consistently high standards. And then I'm also a CREST assessor, so responsible for setting and marking CTI exams and qualifications that Tom referred to earlier in the domain of threat intelligence. Just very briefly in terms of my background's in intelligence. So I've kind of spent my career in cyber threat intelligence to date, specifically in consultancies. But I'll go on to unpack that, just talking about, I guess, career paths in a moment. So quickly, what is CTI? It's kind of often thrown about. It's obviously a three-letter acronym. It means different things to different people. I think a lot of certainly what we do at Orpheus revolves around around this definition of cyber threat intelligence, basically. So it is understanding effectively regarding cyber threats that can be used to help predict, prevent, detect, and respond. So effectively different ways of mitigating and remediating cyber threats. I appreciate it may seem facile. That may not be news to a lot of you on the call. However, I do think it is important to differentiate intelligence from both data and information. Again, it's probably a kind of presentation topic for a different time, but I think CTI is a relatively kind of nascent industry still. There's a lot of products and services that are kind of purely data related. So, for example, providing kind of clients with feeds of atomic indicators. There are a lot of, I guess, companies and organizations that are either kind of selling or have adopted what they'd refer to as a threat intelligence based approach, or that they're using threat intelligence to help secure themselves. Whereas I've seen in a lot of cases, it's a purely kind of data-driven approach. So I think important to call out that distinction now between data, so kind of disparate individual elements that could be kind of malicious IPs or a kind of single indicator like that. And then between that and information, which has been processed and contextualized, and also intelligence. So at the end of the process, that has been through, so data and information that has been through an analytical process and is used to inform a decision-making process. So in this case, helping organizations prevent, predict, detect, and respond to cyber threats. So we, as a threat intelligence provider, see ourselves responsible for the kind of arrow on the right-hand side there, which also sort of pertains to the intelligence cycle. Just to touch quickly on kind of different routes into CTI. So I've mentioned a couple of times that I've spent a lot of my career working in consultancies, and I've just kind of want to go into these conceptual differences between the different areas that you can work in within CTI. So obviously Orpheus is a private company. We provide a range of kind of goods and services to our clients. We look to, I guess, satisfy those requirements first and foremost, and it means that we, through the kind of variety of products and services that we provide is quite extensive as a result. We're very happy doing things like capability building, helping our clients with different kind of problems, providing a variety of different kind of goods and services. So which offers the obviously offers some benefits in terms of the variety of the work, potentially working with a range of interesting clients. However, it doesn't mean that it doesn't perhaps allow individuals to develop the same degree of expertise in a particular subdomain of cyber threat intelligence as you would if you were working on a pure vendor side. So to pick a kind of another couple of companies that fit the description of a vendor. This could be a kind of a Flashpoint, an Intel 471, a Digital Shadows, for example. These are obviously private companies that are working with a litany of clients. They are more focused on providing effectively a software as a service platform. So basically only selling a platform to clients, working and selling that product effectively at scale, but obviously operating it with really sophisticated technology that's specifically geared at satisfying requirements. And those kind of vendor services can encompass everything from sort of vulnerability management to kind of deep and dark web data to technical indicators on the data side of thing, to more kind of geopolitical assessment of threat actors, for example. So I'd say that's one of the attractions of the vendor space, is a chance to kind of develop more specific expertise in one of those particular subdomains. Now, obviously, the third main category, kind of roughly defined, is what we call end user or kind of client organizations. So these are the entities that are actually kind of consuming and applying threat intelligence. There are, and I'll touch upon this in kind of why CTI in a second, but there is increasingly an appreciation, and this is a massive shift I've seen in the kind of last 11 or 12 years or so that I've been working in cyber threat intelligence specifically. There is an increasing appreciation of the benefits of an intelligence-led approach to cyber security. And there is an increasing demand within end-user organizations, not necessarily to spin up a massive and kind of really sophisticated approach to cyber threat intelligence, but to adopt the principles of that approach and have some capability, which means that there are also an increasing number of kind of entry-level roles available in those kind of large companies and organizations as well. I should say, particularly the financial services sector, it's often at the kind of forefront of, I guess, innovation and development in the private sector in terms of those end user organizations, just because they're typically at the kind of sharpest end of the threat. But certainly from our perspective, we increasingly see that demand kind of across multiple sectors as well. And again, that caveat that my experience and my perspective is largely from that consultancy side, although we do offer kind of platforms and we work closely with end user organizations. I'd say maybe the primary benefit from working on the end user side of things is that kind of more broader holistic understanding of how cyber threat intelligence can actually practically be used to help secure your organization. And it also provides pathways into a variety of other kind of different roles that CTI potentially provides a kind of launching pad into. So I'm just going to touch on why CTI. I think Tom's kind of made some really good points about specifically about pen testing, but also the kind of overall demand for cybersecurity professionals generally. So I'm not going to kind of dwell on those specifically too much. Again, a lot of these are stemming from my own personal experience. One of the kind of first and foremost things, and I think this this point stands, even though CTI as a discipline is kind of, I'd say, emerged over maybe looking back the last 15 years or so. I guess the industry and the discipline has developed and shifted and come on so much in that time period. And I think it's still, as a kind of relatively new domain, it's massively dynamic, so it's changing. There is a massive opportunity as kind of you as an individual or as an organization to change the discipline as well and really kind of drive standards forward in the way we do things. And I think as well that dynamism is kind of borne out by the breadth of different areas in which it kind of touches, which leads into the potential for a massive amount of variety as well. So I've listed, particularly where we're talking about the kind of vendor space there, the variety of different specialisms that people can get stuck into within the kind of broader banner of threat intelligence. But it really gives people an opportunity to, and this kind of goes on to my third point, to try a lot of different things. I think from a couple of questions that I've seen coming in on the Q&A so far, and again, generally, question I often hear from people who are looking to move into the industry broadly is they're concerned about specialising at kind of too early a stage in their career. But I think the beauty of one of the beauties of cyber threat intelligence is that opportunity to gain exposure to a lot of different areas, because it can potentially touch so many different kind of aspects of within an organisation, within its kind of security journey. And it also means, again, if the kind of individual has a suitably broad skill set, that kind of no 2 days necessarily need to be the same. I think the final one Tom touched upon, but always worth reiterating. I think from what we see, the demand for kind of high quality, cyber threat intelligence products and services continues to outstrip the ability to supply them at the moment. And I think that is, again, a point I touched upon earlier. There is an increasing appreciation kind of among companies and organizations, kind of agnostic of sector, of the value that an intelligence-led approach can provide, and what CTI can do for an organization. And we kind of only see that increasing from the consultancy perspective. It was slightly more cynically a kind of an attractive factor for me looking at this as a potential space however many years ago it was, just because of the that kind of dynamism and the opportunities it creates as a result. So slightly more cynical one, but certainly not one to ignore, I don't think. I'm just going to touch briefly on what we particularly look for in individuals. Again, different companies will have different requirements, so I can only kind of speak from my own personal perspective here about the sorts of things that make applicants stand out. I think first and foremost, research and analysis capabilities. So the ability to define a problem or kind of an exam question, work out how you're going to collect the data and information pertinent to that, how you're going to process it, and how you're going to communicate that back to a client or the user or the consumer or whoever it is. I think that's pretty fundamental. There's obviously a kind of element of technical capability that goes alongside that, but they don't necessarily, I guess they're not necessarily mutually dependent. We've got some brilliant analysts, and I've seen some brilliant analysts elsewhere that are kind of stronger on the, I guess, softer research and analysis skills rather than having a kind of deep foundational understanding in cybersecurity. Communication skills, absolutely critical. I think hopefully I've kind of touched upon this in the importance of this. Sorry, in terms of my definition of CTI, but a lot of what we need in a cyber threat intelligence analyst is an ability to communicate clearly, say verbally and in writing. It's the ability to convey and explain often quite kind of complex and disparate data and information in an appropriate format for the target audience. So again, it's another kind of softer skill, I suppose, but a really critical one from our perspective. I think intellectual curiosity, and this goes back and hopefully echoes a point Tom was making about almost not a kind of rigid set of prerequisites in terms of technical capability or knowledge or kind of certifications, whatever else. I certainly accept I don't pretend to be a kind of expert in all aspects of the threat landscape. But what's really critical, especially considering how kind of dynamic and evolving the cyber threat landscape is a kind of what I call, I've not coined the term, is what is called intellectual curiosity. So interest in understanding what's going on, developing one's own knowledge, and kind of taking an interest in obviously specifically the cyber threat landscape, but also the kind of world around you. I think the most kind of naturally inquisitive people in my experience tend to make the best analysts, and more will always kind of drive or feed into that hunger and desire to kind of improve in terms of qualifications and certifications and bits like that as well. So I think they dovetail nicely. And a final one, which I think stems from those above 3 points, but I think something that always stands out in candidates and applications when we see it is demonstrable interest in the subject matter, basically. So again, we're never expecting, certainly in kind of entry level opportunities, that candidates are going to have professional or kind of academic or whatever experience. But if they've taken, I guess, concrete steps to demonstrate this is actually something that I'm keen to kind of learn more and develop my skills in, that's always a really good differentiator from our perspective. Last one, really quickly. These are probably best shared as links via the YouTube, or maybe you can stick them in the comments or whatever. But just a couple of guides that we produced as CTIPs via CREST. So firstly, there's a general guide on what is cyber threat intelligence and how is it used. This is due an update, but hopefully provides a bit of a kind of primer on the topic. There's another member of the CTIPs committee has written another paper on kind of the applications of CTI within business, hopefully adds a bit more context to those use cases in client organization. And also there's some really good literature out there, particularly in the kind of career paths into CTI perspective, on kind of stats in the market and I guess why people should be interested from the perspective of kind of commercial and career development as well. But like I said, hopefully we can share those links. That's all I was going to go through. So I'll maybe stop rambling there and pass back to Debbie.